Good morning, beautiful wives. Today we are on day 8 and it's called Confident Worthiness. And I love this devotional today. So I'm going to read all of the passages with you guys. Um, First one is Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She's more precious than rubies. And then Psalms 139:13 to 18. Um, it's hard to say that this is one of my favorite because so is Psalm 23 and so is Psalm 37 and it's like, they're all my favorite, but I just really love this. Um, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is so marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before one single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God! They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of the sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. I just love this passage. And then the next one is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along the right path, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and your unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. I I cannot even begin to speak how much I love this psalm. This psalm has deeply transformed me. I've had many encounters with God in this psalm. In all the verses, in different parts of it, I was submerged in it for a very long amount of time, and I love to do that. I love to grab passages that God is truly speaking to me and dig really, really deep into it. And this is one of them. And that word, the Lord is my shepherd, that word shepherd represents so much. It represents a best friend, it represents somebody who is always there, no matter what. The world could be falling apart. That shepherd, that word that it's used in Hebrew, that shepherd is not going away. He's not going anywhere. It's not just a guy who takes care of the sheep. It's somebody who deeply cares for that sheep. It's somebody who gives his life for that sheep. It's what Jesus is to us, right? He is that shepherd to us. And when it says I have all that I need, that expression in the Hebrew means that we lack nothing, that in that shepherd we have all that we need. And it's not just talking about physical needs, it's talking about an entire being need, right? The needs, I don't know that we've talked about that in this devotional and the previous one, or maybe just somewhere else that I've talked about this, but we have needs at all levels of our being, right? We have needs as a human being, as a physical, we have needs as emotional needs, and we have spiritual needs, because we are three in one. So when it says I have all that I need, it's referring to our entire being. So in that shepherd who is our best friend, we have all that we need, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, like within him we are able to fulfill all of our needs, and when I understood it to this depth the first time, it just blew my mind, because if he is the shepherd that meets all of my needs at all levels of my being, then that means I lack nothing, and I can come to my marriage, I can come to my friendships, I can come to my relationships as a whole being, as a healed being, as a being who has all that it needs to bring to the table. I'm not trying to get my emotional needs met from my husband, not even my physical needs, that yes, of course, he's the one that meets some of my physical needs, right? But he can only meet because I'm already met in him. You see what I'm saying? Because otherwise, it's never enough. If I am not met, if my needs are not met in Jesus, then nobody will ever do enough to meet anything. Does that make sense? I hope I'm being able to express what I'm trying to say. But it is so important that we know that the Lord is our shepherd, the one that knows us, the one that sees us, the one that loves us regardless of what he sees, because he sees it all, the good, the ugly, and the bad, and he loves us so deeply anyways, and because of that, we can have all of our needs met in him, so that we can come to the table with a whole being that no longer is there striving for needs to be met, but who comes with met needs that now another person can meet, what is part of their human responsibility to meet as husband and wife. This is extremely deep, guys, and I hope that you understand the depth that I'm trying to communicate, because we have a place and a hole in our hearts that only God can meet. And that's what this passage in Psalm 23 is talking about. It's that shepherd place in our hearts that only he can meet, and he meets it at all levels. We lack nothing. So after that's met, after that happens, we come to the table to any of our relationships, but over here we're talking about marriages, obviously. So we come to our marriage, we come to our husbands with that part of our hearts met. So there is a part of our hearts that only our husbands can meet, and when we are not married, then well, somebody else will, right? But when we are married, only our husbands can meet, nobody else. And if we try to put somebody else in there, it goes bad, believe me, I've done that. But there is that part of our heart that only God can meet, and then that part of our heart that only our husbands can meet. But if we come to the table with the first one not being met, our husbands can never meet their part, because they're only humans, right? Just like us. But if we come to the table with that first part fulfilled and fully met, then they can do what they are supposed to do and meet, because even when they fail, that first part is already met. So it doesn't matter, because we're able to go past that to the next chapter of our lives together, So this is just so beautiful and so profound, and it was so revelational to me when I first understood how deep Psalm 23 is, and the need that we have to meet with him in that table that he sets for us before our enemies, and just dine with him, at all levels of our being. And this is just, it blows my mind. It's incredible. I love it so much. So anyways, none of that is even what the devotional talks about, but it's definitely what it is about, right? The confident worthiness, it is in that we find our confident worthiness. If it's not because of that, then we're never going to find it, right? We're never going to find ourselves worthy enough unless that first part of our heart is fully met by our shepherd, our best friend, our lover, the lover of our souls, So anyways, in the devotional, it does talk about this, though. It does talk about God is the only one who can meet every desire, exceed your every expectation and fulfill your life completely, because he loves you and believes you are worthy. He died for us, right? And then, well, it goes on to talk about the rest of the devotional. Confident worthiness is a result of allowing God to be your everything, is how it ends. And then he has a prayer for us and a challenge. I love this challenge. It says, take a walk with your husband and watch a sunset together and talk about all the ways that God may be showing you worthiness, may be showing you your worthiness. You can also talk about how God may be asking you to trust him within a specific area of your marriage. And we can do this in so many ways. We don't have to use Christianese to be able to have this conversation, right? We can use language that's simple, we can use language that's easy, and that's neutral, but yet have a deep conversation with our spouses about what he's showing us about ourselves, and about our marriage and about them, right? So I love this challenge to take a walk with your spouse. And last year was a year, I've mentioned this to you guys before, last year was a year of extreme intentionality for my husband and I in our marriage. And one of the habits that we've developed is taking an afternoon walk together. Every single day we take an afternoon walk together, and that's the time where we get to share, and we have deep conversations during these walks, and we take the dog out and we walk the dog together. I mean, he used to do it before anyways. He's always done it. The dog needs to go for a walk, and now I just decided to join him. And it's been, a year, a year. We started this in last year, February. So almost a year that we've done it every single day together. And that's the time where we take, to have deep conversations, really. There are, I love to sit in front of him and look eye to eye and have these conversations. For him, he feels more comfortable shoulder to shoulder. He feels more comfortable when he's next to me, so it works. When we are walking, we're next to each other. He's not looking straight into my eyes, so he flows way better than if I sit him on a table looking straight into my eyes. Somehow that's intimidating to him. But anyways, I just love this challenge, because like deep conversations come out of those walks, and I don't think it's, the author may or may not realize that that's how men respond better, right? Shoulder to shoulder. But for sure, it was inspired by the Holy Spirit, because that is how they respond better. They respond better shoulder to shoulder than face to face. So walks are amazing for that. So anyways, the 3 journaling questions for today are: what evidence convinces you of your worthiness? What is the evidence that convinces you of your worthiness? Number 2, what is the first place you usually go when you desire to feel worthy? And then the third one, how can trusting in God fulfill your need to feel worthy? And, I remember when I first did this book, well, I don't remember, let me rephrase that. I don't remember when I first did this book. If you know me, I forget stuff. But I do have my answers written down from when I first wrote the book, when I first read the book, right? And then I have the second time around, which is what I'm doing with you now. And I can see how much growth there is in my answers, because of the steps that I've taken in my journey with God, really, in deepening my relationship with him. So these are good, and if you do have the book, I encourage you to write on the book so that, 10 years from now, 8 years from now, you look at the book again, you see your progress and you see your growth. Anyways, I really love this devotional today, and I really love the depth of Psalm 23, and I hope you can experience it as well, that you can have that revelation for yourself. And I'm just praying for you, for your marriage, for your husband, for your walk with God, and for your journey. as a wife set ablaze. Much love. Bye bye.